No, it's fabrication, just me.
We can call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m.
Citizens communication.
And so the first item we're going to do is citizens communication. The commission welcomes comment on parks and recreation items. Public comment that is made on an item is not on the published agenda will only be heard by the commission. No formal action, discussion, or comment will be made. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to state his or her name and address for the public records. Do we have any citizen communication? Any comments? No. All right, moving on to item 3A, which is discuss and consider action to approve the minutes from the last month's meeting on February 26th. And we can now look over them if you haven't already.
I'm good to make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve and a second. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty. We're moving on to these things.
Okay, you want to go to the art?
Yes. So we have some people here to speak with us, so we're going to skip down to 5B?
Yeah, 5
Yeah, to 5B. And we're going to discuss and consider action to approve the commissioning of fiberglass goat sculptures by Icon Poly.
Thank you. Good evening. I am very excited about bringing back another art item for you tonight that's more community-based. The concept is to create a goat trail series, and the art fabricator is Icon Poly. So we have already gone through the design process with them, and so the design that we are presenting tonight is for your consideration. This is also a goat that somewhat resembles some of the goats that we have coming through our park system that chomp on all the green stuff. But yes, this is the concept. One thing I will note is while we're still in the design process, we can still ask them for a couple modifications. One of the modifications that we're going to request is that the horns kind of have a softer edge on it. But other than that, we are comfortable with the design as displayed on the screen. Are y'all familiar at all with the cow parade? Have y'all seen this sort of thing? Essentially, it's something similar that we would like to emulate here. The proposed location, we anticipate it, at least the first iteration of it, within downtown East, within this little pedestrian corridor right by the Great Plaza. But there is also some opportunity to expand it into the downtown core. So we have that as just an example, and also potentially adding it within the park system and trail system nearby to kind of create a loop. But that would be the goal. So with the GOAT Trail series, some of the opportunities is that it provides for smaller canvases for local and regional artists. It also provides for other opportunities for some of these goats to be located at some of the commercial establishments downtown. Since we don't have a lot of right-of-way to display the types of goats within that core area, so having the businesses wanting to participate would also be something that we would like to push. And then there's also opportunities to work with PFISD. It creates a smaller canvas. It's a fiberglass goat, weighs about 60 pounds. We would be able to transport that to the schools so that they could actually paint on site, the art classes.
Another thing to note, and we're just making an assumption you know about the goats, but like, the goat thing is taken off here almost like, for the same reason like the Hutto Hippos thing years ago, our goats got loose as well. We were doing this trail maintenance, and the very first time we had some goats, we were running them through our system, and they were doing trail, they were poison ivy abatement, cleaning up the underbrush, those types of things. And this was 2 summers ago now, Junior? 3 summers ago?
That we started?
Feels like yesterday.
Yeah, that the goats got loose.
No, that was last summer.
Yeah, last summer. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. That was last summer. That's crazy. Anyways, goats got out. Flash flood, goats got out. They were let out of their pen because it looked like they might drown. They got out and they went all across the city, or all across that area downtown. And once we got them all gathered back up, we made a Facebook post about it. I made shirts about it, and council have loved it ever since. So that's why the goat in some ways has become an unofficial mascot, and why it makes a lot of sense to that animal is the animal that we use to do this parade style art.
Is that story well known amongst Pflugerville residents?
I think so. It's definitely well known among city
If
leadership.
you were on Facebook that day, it is.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook account.
We made some. So once that happened, I told council I'd make some shirts to commemorate it. And so
Yeah.
when I was making my summer report, I made shirts that had a goat and an inner tube, and it
Okay.
says whatever floats your goats. And we sold them at the rec center for a while,
Nice.
and we've won 1 or 2 awards off the maintenance program. And then last summer, through the budget process, we had a reduced budget, and one of the items was going to be the trail maintenance program, and council brought the goats program back. They saved it through the budget, and that got talked about. And so I don't think of all 75,000 residents, a lot of people know about it, but it is super popular. We've been on the news a couple different times. And when we do post about it on social media, we have a lot of families that'll come out over the summer and take their kids and go see the goats throughout the park system and everything. So I think it's more well-known than unknown.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think for the people that know about the program, this will connect really well.
Nice. And I'm just asking, it could be an opportunity. I'm sure
Yeah.
this is already being thought about, but like to amplify that story once we get to the point where those
Yeah.
are built or done.
We also have some other ideas cooking
Yeah.
as well.
Art and programming.
We'll have to ask the guy if we can use his Facebook
Well,
video.
well,
and drive
well.
it by. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just driving by, filming all these goats and a bunch of city staff chasing them around.
It wasn't funny.
Funny now. Kids live on the.
Absolutely, yeah.
So for some of the specifications, it is anticipated to be 4 feet in height. The thickness of the fiberglass is between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. Any of the areas that are kind of pointed in some way, it's going to, or protrude, they're going to be, it's going to be thicker in those locations. We anticipate fabricating wooden platforms or some other platform that we anticipate having some decent longevity to hold up, because it is supposed to be staged in a way where it's a temporary type installation. But temporary for this type is more like we hope to get 10 years. That's our goal. Because usually the painted works of art, that's usually the end of which it fades significantly. In terms of quantities, I think we anticipate purchasing a minimum of 12 goats just for the pedestrian corridor. It's $1,400 per goat plus shipping and mounting platforms, but we anticipate purchasing up to $30,000 for the fabrication of the goats.
I think it's also important, and you may cover it in another slide, that because there's been some discussions on Facebook, this doesn't come from general fund. It's not a tax dollar
Oh, yeah.
purchase. This is specifically funded from hot tax funds,
Correct.
hotel and occupancy tax funds. And there's a carve out for what you can and can't use those funds for, and how much can be used for one thing, how much can be used for another. And so we have a pot of money just for public art. So it's not like this could lower your taxes or fill up the lake or do any number of other things that people would ask about.
Yeah.
That's not what that funding could ever be used for in any capacity. This is specifically for public art.
And thank you for reminding me to comment on that. The public art program is essentially a tourism initiative. So we're always using that lens when we are identifying locations for art and how we can promote it.
The art program and some of the quirky stuff we do in the city, I think even the goats at one time were
Yep.
fairly recently written about in an article for Texas Monthly
Yep.
within the last year.
Yeah, we're going to go heavy on goats. You might see another sculpture too.
We're leaning in.
We're
Yeah.
leaning in.
But it you think, oh, is art tourism? But no, it's something that people are discussing. People do come out to, and like I said, even Texas Monthly did an article on some of the art stuff that we had in our park system already. Yes.
How's it gonna be decided who gets to do the art on the goats?
We have not. What we still need to do is finalize the design details with the fabricator. And then it is about an 8 to 12 week fabrication timeline, and that is associated with 12 goats. When I had mentioned, what are we looking at? So the next step would be fabrication and also doing a call for art for proposals.
Is it fabrication and then painting over them? Is that how it works?
So yeah, it'll come primed.
Okay.
So white primer, but they do recommend that there is slight prepping before, which is sanding it just slightly with some 180 to 220 grit, just so that we have more confidence that it's going to stick. Because in transport, dust, whatever it may be, paint might not stick to it as well as you would like. But yes, there's some prep to it. We would ask the artist to do this. We have the instructions from the fabricator.
And we're expecting it to last about 10 years. Is there any kind of warranty or guarantee on it that if it starts to delaminate after a little while?
So the 10-year is actually more of our goal.
Mm-hmm.
The manufacturer, they can last more like 20 years, but they said one of the things to likely happen is the paint's going to deteriorate. You might have some breaks, stuff like that. So it should last longer. It's just more about the actual painted work of art.
And is it
For
a
the 10.
pretty established company? I
Yes,
heard of it,
it's out of Nebraska.
Okay.
I did not find another company that is a one-stop shop for design and fabrication. So they do a lot of the work probably in the surrounding cities. So like you've seen the squirrel in Seguin, right? The
I
duck
haven't seen
in,
that one, but
huh?
It makes
Taylor?
sense, but I haven't seen
Yeah,
it.
so there's this is typically used when you need some flexibility in fabrication as well as siding. It's the anticipated weight is 60 pounds, and so it just makes it so much easier in terms of logistics. When you're working with multiple artists, you might not have it sited at that location during the actual painting. So this was kind of the solution for finding those smaller canvases that we would like to work with the school district on,
Okay.
but on a larger format.
I don't know how long the cow parade art has been going on, but I started my career in the city of Fort Worth, and it was in Fort Worth then, and I went to college in Abilene, and I remember going back a couple years later. My dad lives out in Abilene. I remember going back a couple years later, and they were in Abilene, and Abilene's downtown area, so they had moved there, and then I saw a photo of it in front of the Alamo, so they just get around.
And we will definitely be exploring some clear coat options to give that paint much more longevity. And I believe the fabricator has given us some recommendations on what kind of product to use, but essentially they're saying that a clear coat, that is what you would use for automotive purposes.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
from what
that's your best bet.
What I know about fiberglass, I think UV exposure would be the biggest risk to, you know, deteriorating it. So I guess we just want to make sure that there's not any limitations about where we can put them outdoor locations, whether it has to be in the shade or protected from the weather or anything. But if they're kind of rated for that long of a life, then yeah, sounds like we can trust it.
So if the paint deteriorates, do you repaint over it? Is that the idea?
That would be the thought. We just need to make sure that we identify that up front when we're dealing with the first round of artists, just to kind of give them realistic expectations of, you know, this
Could
is.
give you some flexibility.
Yeah.
Honestly, if the paint deteriorated after 5 or 8 years, you could do a new call.
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly,
Prime it.
that's
Yep.
why I'm asking. I think
Right.
it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
It can be consistently going on. It's a repeated motion, basically. Yeah.
At those dimensions, it's going to be much smaller than the cows used in the cow parades. Are we
Correct.
worried at all about? I know fiberglass is pretty
Oops.
sturdy, but kids climbing all over them and all that kind of stuff. Is it going to withstand all of that continuously?
It's a good question. I know the cow ones people have climbed on before.
But the
And
cow
by
ones
people, I
typically,
mean
the cow one's a little bit
someone
thicker
at this
and sturdier than what this little goat's going to be.
Yeah, so
Is it weight
we've
rated? Do we
definitely.
know?
What was that?
Weight rated? Does it have some sort of weight?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I don't have that particular number, but I did at least get the diameter of or the thickness. What we have been thinking about is ensuring that the platform is built in a way where it deters that type of behavior. I don't particularly like when any of the art is climbed on, but my eye starts twitching. I have to look away because I do know that it we want people to interact with it. It's one of those things where me personally, it's like, oh God, please don't break that. Please don't scratch
12
the
goats out there.
paint.
Kids are going to be riding them.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
we
there'll be multiple
definitely
kids on it.
want to think about that platform and make sure that it's designed in a way where it deters that type. But yes, this is not we do not want these goats to be ridden.
Maybe you could just have a little sign on the side of the platform that's like,
Absolutely.
fragile, don't
Oh,
sit
yeah.
on me.
You should see the sign that I have by the popsicles. It says, "No climbing, I'm melting." You know. Nope, it's still climbed on, but definitely we will have a sign there on each of them.
Do you know if is it hollow or is it?
It is hollow.
Okay.
Well, cool. Do you have any other questions for staff?
Will the art come back, or is this the last time they'll see it?
Oh, okay. So in the adopted art policies and guidelines, what we have is anything less than 3,000, this is just administrative, anything above 3,000, we come back to the commission for.
Since it's in the park system, this commission is the body that gets to approve it. If it would have been at a right of way or something else, it goes with, I guess, planning or a different
Planning?
department. So these are y'all's to approve. So if you don't have any other questions at some point, we'll just need a motion and second and ultimately a vote.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
And all in favor say aye,
Aye.
and all opposed say nay. Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go back to 4A.
This is a discussion only item. 4A, discussion regarding director's update and including information about project status updates, upcoming special events, and staffing.
Jonathan?
Hello, everybody. Jonathan, the rec superintendent, your friendly neighborhood rec superintendent here. Just going over the programs and events coming up. So our Wilderness 101 series, that started last year. It's a chance for kids in our area to learn some basic outdoor survival type skills. And so we'll be doing a fishing one coming up. That'll be at Mills Pond Recreation Area. We have Keep Pflugerville Beautiful Park Cleanup coming up on the 21st out at Lake Pflugerville. That's a partnership with the Parks Foundation and our volunteer coordinator. You can see several PF senior trips on there. So the trips, as a reminder, are to get the seniors out, socializing, visiting places without requiring them to actually put miles on their vehicles or to chance driving if they don't feel comfortable. So the trips this month saved the seniors 282 miles. You can go to the next one. Couple of quick save the dates. Eggpalooza. We had told you about this last time, but we didn't have the time frame set yet. So it will be Saturday, April 4th. We have now set the time frames from 1 to 5. You can see the different age groups on the left. It's at 1849 Park on the soccer fields. As a reminder, we would love to have y'all there if you would like to be there. You can help toss eggs. You can help us get the group started. We'd love to have you be a part of it if you want to. Or if not, and you want to just bring your kids, that's totally fine too. We'd love to see you out there in some form or fashion.
Does adaptive just mean like learning disabilities and stuff? Or?
It's a broad range term. So, for instance, last year we did have some with mental disabilities, but then we also had some who were wheelchair bound.
Some of the parents.
Yeah.
Like the parents couldn't get around, so
Yeah.
they went to that hour.
It can also be really hard for kids with autism or ADHD when this event has, roughly 1,000 people during each flight. So it can be
loud horns go off.
Yeah, it can be a lot. So this is more of like a sensory as well. So there's not as much music going. There's not as many people. So just trying to carve out a space and be intentional for those who maybe don't want to participate in the larger groups.
Gives us an opportunity because we have that hour and everyone's really not queuing up yet until the 0 to 4. So you can kind of, if there's someone with sensory and then there's someone with some sort of, they have issues with their gait or they can't walk or their parents can't walk or whatever, we can, how we throw eggs and stuff and how we lay out the eggs almost is set individually to what each person needs. It hasn't overwhelmed us to the part where,
No.
I mean, we have a good turnout of people that come up for that hour. It's almost every one of them gets a little personal event.
That's great.
One of my favorite pictures from last year's is there was a child who showed up in a wheelchair, and so he couldn't bend over. And so, quick thinking amongst the staff, we got one of our grabbers that the Parks guys use, and so from his wheelchair, he was able to grab the eggs and put them in the bag. So it's a fun way for us to get to love on the community as well. And the master plan has called for us to have more adaptive type programming, which you'll see a lot of, especially when the new rec center opens. But this is one of the ways where we've found that we can include it into our chorizo, potato, egg, and cheese taco.
That's right.
Music in the Park. Once again, this is our annual outdoor concert series. The next one's coming up on April 10th. Bring your chairs, pets, blankets. This week we will have, or this Music in the Park, we will have the artist Sour Bridges. They call themselves a brown grass group, which is essentially bluegrass, but just a little dirtier. I don't know what that means, but
We'll find out.
yeah, we'll find out. And then Home Plate 717 food truck will be there. And then we do outreach with Campo, which is, I wrote down the acronym, Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. There we go. So they, within the 6 counties that are considered the capital area, they are in charge of focusing on transportation and accessibility. And so they do outreach, obviously, here in Pflugerville, with Travis County being one of those counties. So they're one of our partners that comes out to a lot of these types of events to get feedback.
We had Hill Country Revival last weekend, or was it, or 2 weekends ago?
Yeah.
Great turnout. Lots of people were there.
Yeah. The weather looks like it's going to be good again. It should be, it's way far out, but it looks like it might be about 75 degrees, mostly sunny. So,
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan.
you're welcome.
Gilling Creek Park is open now to the public. It opened on Monday. Been a long time coming for portions of this park. It has some access points now where people can access it from the trail. People can access walking under and around Big Shady. They can go all the way around the Gilling Creek pool capacity and access the other side of the parking lot. There was a play feature that was replaced. This is the expansion that we actually were hoping to have this rolled out and opened about a month ago. But the last pour of this safety surfacing, this ADA surfacing, someone walked across it as it was curing. And normally that's a kid. This kid had a size 12 work boots. I don't think it was a kid. It was a monster child if it was. And so we had to reschedule and work with the vendor and to get it repoured. And so we were able to get it punched out. So, you know, if you haven't been by, go check it out. I think it's a vast improvement to the original play offering that we provided, the play value that we provided with the old play structure.
How much of a cost hit is that if you have to redo that surface?
So at that surfacing will cost you, I think it's usually about a third of the project. I think at retail it would have cost us $50,000 or $60,000. Originally, the portion that we would have had to pay for that top layer was going to cost somewhere around in the $16,000 to $20,000 range. We were working with that vendor, and I think they got it to under $8.
Yeah.
Under $8 is what we had to pay to repour it. So we got a lot of value from them for that. We're very appreciative that they were willing to do that at such a reduced rate, and they had to bring their construction crews back out and rip that top layer off completely and repour it. We tried to see if we could carve out the pieces where the walking had happened and see if we could make some sort of cool design and just repour a design in. And it was a design, but it didn't look like anything necessarily. And so, you know, keeping to our standard, where would we have done this design if we had done it the first time? It was a no. So we went ahead, and to be fair, they were willing to do that portion for zero cost. So we paid to do it the way we would have wanted it to be done at a little bit of an increase, about $8,000, but we got it looking the way we would have wanted it the first time around. And this safety surfacing is something that all abilities can play on, all abilities have access to, and since it's in the floodplain, when floods do happen, we're not losing our wood fiber or our mulch or whatever and it washing out of the park system. So once the flood resides and, you know, the playground is cleaned up, it can stand back up and then be immediately used for the public. It doesn't have to have any type of wood infill back in. So, and then the lake. What is going on? So y'all are kind of representatives of the citizen, right? And y'all are our conduit to that community. And at times, throughout your service, someone's going to say, "Oh, you work for the Parks and Rec Board. What is blank going on? What's happening here?" And if they haven't already, they may ask you at some point, "What's going on at the lake?" The lake. We thought this would be a good opportunity to just have a discussion and answer any questions that y'all have. The lake is a utility. The lake, in a lot of ways, it's a water reservoir. It's a big water tower, except instead of it being 20 feet in the air like a traditional water tower, it's 40 feet into the ground. It was created 20 years ago, or so now, 21 years ago, and it's the city's drinking water, and we built a pipeline, a 30-inch pipeline that comes from the Colorado River in North Austin to this location that the city secured and built. And I think for the first year it was just body of water, and then eventually the city was like, this is an incredible recreational amenity that you can put trails on, a beach, a boathouse, etc. And what you see out there today has grown into what this water reservoir has become. And it's a utility. It's everyone's drinking water, but it's so much more for so many people. You know, it's something that people walk on every day. They take their dogs out to. We have people that boat and fish and kayak and swim. And it serves the city in a lot of different ways. With the city growing over the last 20 years, that 30-inch pipeline wasn't enough. It was enough if we stopped growing, but we're a town of about 70 or 75,000, and I think our build-out's close to somewhere in the 150 to 200,000 range, somewhere in that range. And so we have a lot of growth left to do, and we have a lot of development coming in. And you're seeing cities all across Texas trying to figure out what to do with their water and how they're going to grow with it and how they're going to provide the developers and the residential developers the growth they need. And so this city tried to get ahead of that curve, and ultimately through council, through the utility fund and the utility department, and ultimately through council, they approved a additional pipeline coming in. It's 42 inches, so ultimately the city will have 72 inches of water piping in from the Colorado River, and it runs parallel to that 30-inch line. In the process of that line being laid, it's been hit a couple different times. I think 5 would be the official number. And construction happens. Anyone that's ever dug anywhere in their own yard or anywhere else and thinks they have the as-built and all the other things that you do, not everything's laid out exactly the way it should be, or, you know, as they're tearing down to get to the spot, you know, they nick something along the way. And that's what's happened a couple different times. And no one here can really speak to exactly that process because it's a utility function that's being overseen by the utility department and that team. But we do know that a couple different times they've had to cut the water off, but the residents are still using water as they would. And so that water was being used, so it's being drained from that lake, but there was no water being pumped in, so it wasn't being filled back up. And then it's been a pretty dry year, so it wasn't getting any rain. And so we've gotten to a point where we're in emergency restrictions right now. The last break has been repaired. There is water now flowing back in. I think it's 9 something bazillion something. I don't know. There's water coming back at whatever capacity we can pump it. It's coming in. It's better than it wasn't when it was not pumping anything. So we're getting water back to the lake, but it's going to take a while to get out of emergency restrictions or even our water restrictions at any level. To be quite honest, what we believe to be true is that it's going to take about 60 days to get back up to where the water level was over the winter break, sometime in that range, and to get back up at a capacity where the 30-inch line, the 72-inch line is pumping and the citizens are using water as they normally would consume it, will probably be into the summer. And so that some of that is a function of the utility department, and there's not a lot we have any control over. Some of that, whether we like it or not, definitely has an impact on Parks and Rec. And what that looks like downstream for us is that there's a lot of things not getting watered. All of our irrigation and landscaping that we've put in the last couple of years isn't currently being watered in this emergency phase. We're hoping as we go from emergency to stage 2 into stage 1 that some of those restrictions can release and we can start to water some things. Same thing with our ball fields. So 1849 Park has water that comes in from Manville. And Manville is a different water system than the city is. And so it's not tied to the lake, it's not affecting the lake. And so we have an agreement with them where they charge us for 650,000 gallons a day, whether we use it all or not. So it's a take or not rate. We're still getting charged that. We use it at peak season. We use it for watering the system, watering the 1849 Park, and we also fill up a reservoir there, a tank there that we irrigate from. We've got baseball, softball that just came on, those fields are establishing. We're still trying to water those. We were originally going to have play on those this spring, but because of the restrictions and because we didn't know how these fields were going to stand up, and we didn't know if we could water them at full capacity once we started to see wear on fields that haven't been established yet, we've pulled baseball, softball off. So we're probably not going to see any spring play. What we may do is, as we continue to establish that turf in the next month or two, as we start to hopefully see the water levels in the lake go up, even though the lake and Manville are two different things, as we start to see the water levels go up, and it's just a better look overall. We may try to do some clinics or some one-day things out there, and it kind of gives us a soft run on those fields just to see how it stands up to wear. Once this is a special blend of turf. I think it's TIF turf is the grass we use here, but we have Latitude, we have Latitude 36. We have a couple different styles in our park system, and they're super resilient of a synthetic species of Bermuda grass. They usually green up quicker, they last longer, they stand up better to resilience, and it's one of those exotics that you put in for, if you're not going to use artificial turf, it's one of those exotics you put in a Bermuda, in Texas anyways, where it doesn't need a lot of water, but it greens up quick and it's pretty resilient. But it does take time to establish. So soccer, football has that same sort of exotic turf, but it's been established since 2018. And we slowly established that. We started out 20 hours a week on those fields, then we went to 25, and now we're at to 30 or 35 hours a week. 30 hours a week. And so it's grown into itself. And we're watering those right now 2 days a week, and we're looking to see what we can do to water more. Since Manville is the location that the city is getting water and it doesn't affect the lake, Manville is that spot is supporting baseball, softball, it's supporting football, soccer. It's also supporting some of our internal projects, streets and things like that, where we would need water for construction and other things, and we couldn't source it. We're trying not to pull, obviously, from the lake and affect our drinking water. So it's that port into that park is carrying a heavy load right now for some of the projects in the city.
Is there any connection where you can use the saved water from 1849 Park to divert it back to the main system in the lake?
And put it in the lake, yeah. So there is, and part of that 650,000 gallons is going to a spot in the city. The problem is the city only has the capacity to take so much water in and chlorinate it before it goes into our drinking water. And so they're taking their max capacity that we can chemically treat. So take that 450,000 gallons or whatever from Manville off the top of that 650, and then we're left with essentially around 200,000 gallons a day. But then we have CIP projects and other construction going on, and we've got a couple different spots that we're watering. And so it's just limited to what we used to have had out there by ourselves. We didn't have to share it with anybody.
That's an important note, though, just for the public's concern, is that 1849 is receiving water. The treatment plant is getting the max amount of water it can. So that water that's being utilized at 1849 could not be utilized elsewhere.
Yep.
That's in the FAQ, all that stuff, but there's a lot of information out there. And so,
Yeah.
it's reading the novel to get all the information, but that, for purposes of Parks and Rec, that's a really important.
And it's great that we can water 1849 Park, but Dave's trees don't get any water. All the irrigation, all the landscaping in our city, all those different spots that we've worked with Monarch Sanctuary Project and different projects to do, natural or even some sort of real colorful landscaping isn't getting any water currently. Wells Point isn't getting any water currently. Finnig isn't getting any water currently. And so at some point, we're probably going to have to start pulling from 1849 with a trucker that we don't have. So we'll have to rent some sort of tank trucker or a trailer, and we'll drive it to those spots and then hand irrigate those as well. So
Do any of the parks have purple pipe reclaimed water yet?
we're working on it,
Yeah.
but we don't have it.
From PNC,
Yeah,
they're working
we don't
on
have it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that would have been a benefit to us, especially at full build out of that purple pipe, but we're just not there yet. So we're having to be as creative as possible. Something else that you don't think about is the aquatics programming. So what we've asked of ourselves and everyone else in the city, including other commercial locations, is that they don't extend their programming out of essentially maintenance mode. So there is a natural topping off that happens. There's a natural evaporation that happens, especially as it gets hotter. And as you have chemical that you apply, most of that chemical has a water soluble component to it, so it needs to be absorbed with water. And so we're not asking ourselves or anyone else in city limits or anyone in our drinking water limits, the CCN is what they call it. We're not asking anybody in that area to let their pools drain or go green, but we're asking everyone not to increase their bather load. So, not to add a bunch of people where the more people in there, the more chemical you have to use. Now the more water you're having to use. And on top of evaporation, which we're trying to fight, and we're putting as much, we're encouraging everyone to put things over their pools to fight evaporation. When kids are jumping in and splashing around, you lose water anyways, right? So we're trying to prevent all that. We understand evaporation's happening. We're allowing for maintenance top-offs and maintenance applications of chemical and whatever water would be needed for that, which affects us. The only carve-out we've allowed for everyone is that we understand that lifeguarding, once we get towards the end of May, 1st of June, we believe that we're going to be back to a level that we're in some sort of staging that will allow people to use their pools again. We won't be at full capacity like we will at the end of the summer, but we'll be in a staging where people can use their pools again. And if at that point we had to start trying to train lifeguards, we just wouldn't have a summer season. So Typhoon Texas, ourselves, anybody within our CCN, we are allowing to do lifeguarding training. And so when these pools stand back up, hopefully we don't affect anyone's peak season usage. And we believe that the lifeguard programs, the Learn to Swim programs are a vital part of what Parks and Rec does. And I think we've told y'all before, but someone that has gone through a Learn to Swim program is 90% less likely to drown. So it's an incredible, very valuable thing that a citizen can be exposed to, a training that they can have, and we don't want to go a summer without 2,000 to 3,000 people, which is normally what we serve, right? Not having that critical life-saving skill set. And so we want to do that. We want all of our partners to be able to do that as well. And so we are allowing lifeguard trainings to happen in this maintenance phase, but really nothing else. Splash pads will be off until we can get to a certain staging where we feel like makes sense. We don't want people worried about their drinking water and we're shooting water out of the ground for kids to go running in. We are looking at optics and things like that. Like the ISD, for example, they've got play happening on their fields right now. They're trucking that water in from outside of our city. They're paying to have that trucked in and they're being brought in. That's what we're going to have to look at for some of our ball fields as well. David's been doing all he can to capture water when we have capacities where, for example, like maintenance hydrant flushing. That's something that people don't realize is actually good for the drinking water and the overall quality of the system. But when they flush, in the past it's just water that runs out and no one thinks anything of it. In fact, as a kid, you go run towards it and you have a lot of fun in it. But now that's a very valuable asset that we can try to capture and resave and claim and use somewhere else in our system. We're trying to be good with our partners and tell people, ourselves and others, that those opportunities are happening. Dave and other people are trying to capture those water when they can in tanks and then use those to water the trees and the landscaping in some of the areas of our park system. So this has definitely affected us. And it will for a little bit longer. We've had to cancel our open I mean, what would there be? You just stand up. But we've had to cancel our open swim program in the spring. That was happening at the lake. That was happening a couple times a month out there. And we are trying to communicate with like the traditional triathlon that we've had out there the last 15 or 20 years to know that obviously if we don't get the water back to where we need it to be, that they may not be able to do at least the swim portion of that. So it's one of those things where we're meeting at least once a day, if not twice a day, every single day since it's happened as city staff, evaluating where the lake's at, evaluating where issues are, and trying to source solutions. And I just try to be as thorough as possible here, but any questions y'all have that we can help with, we'd love to help.
Is there any kind of silver lining as far as maintenance in the lake, things you can do when it's empty that you couldn't do when it's full?
There's been some people to ask about dredging. We're not interested in dredging the lake at this time. There's been some people that talk about the piers. Piers are interesting. So you could build a pier system that you concrete every post in. You could have to go down pretty deep, but there's a water table there, and so there's not really anything of grip or value that you could really latch onto. So you'd have these concrete piers. What's funny about the piers, and the piers are closed right now because they're super unstable when you're walking out there because they actually need the water around them to keep them stable. We will see probably a pier that's near the beach right now get removed. It has nothing to do with this, but it's going to be removed with the expansion. It's a pier that you're supposed to fish from, but the popularity of the beach has gotten so much where no one fishes there because the kids are screaming and jumping around there. And so then it becomes this spot where kids are jumping off of, and then they're only hurting themselves climbing up, falling down, or whatever. And so it's a pier that's going to be removed anyways. It's one of our oldest piers. It's got boards and other things that need to replace, and it's not a safe spot. It's not a fishing spot anymore, and it's an unapproved diving platform. And so we're probably going to remove that anyways in the next couple months before our peak season hits up in Memorial Day.
We are doing several trash pickups to include one Saturday.
The 21st?
Yeah.
Yes, yep. The one that I talked about with the Parks Foundation, that'll be out at the lake.
We've had people talk about the colony of fish that are out there. They're obviously being affected by this. Texas Parks and Wildlife will look at them and look at that once we're able to get the water back in and see the strength. And they don't do a lot of stockings out there, partly because, and it's kind of sounds counter intuitive in some ways, but the fish hatcheries that Texas Parks and Wildlife owns raise those fish to put them in a body of water so someone does catch them. They actually want them to be caught because they want you to get addicted to that opportunity of fishing, and then that leads to, that's the gateway drug in the Texas Parks and Wildlife world to you camping and doing all these other things. Fishing is kind of that first bite that a lot of people experience with the outdoors, and so they actually want you to go out there and catch a couple fish, think this was a great experience, and want to do that again. A body of water this big at full capacity, when you stock those fish, they just shoot off, and they're really tough to catch. And so Texas Parks and Wildlife will put fish back into this body of water if that colony is unhealthy, needs to be replaced. But once we're at capacity and we're humming, you'll sometimes see Texas Parks and Wildlife stocking places, sometimes even monthly, try to get people out there to go fish. This body of water is too big for that.
I wonder if there's any opportunities to do any kind of underwater habitats that support the fish colony or something.
Yeah, we do have some areas that the mayor for his birthday did a cleanup at the lake, and they saw a lot of different cinder blocks. Some of those cinder blocks were for the buoys, for the swimming, and some of those cinder blocks were for the fish habitats that we had put old Christmas trees or other fish habitats out there. So we do have some opportunities to check on those and re-anchor them down and things like that. There's not a lot that we can do out there right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing that we get asked about, and you may get asked about, is like car washes. How can the local commercial car washes be happening, but I can't water my plants? Those car washes, per the requirements from the planning process, actually have a tank underground. So that water that you're seeing go through is not, if my car goes through and your car goes through and your car goes through, it's the same water. It's not like we're using different water every time. And so that water goes through, it's caught, it's treated or not treated, and it comes back through, so it's recirculated. And so you will see the car wash is still operating because they have a system in there where they're not actually seeing a lot of water loss. Another thing that's happening that you may see is right now, I told someone if the city didn't have bad luck, it wouldn't have any luck at all, but we recently found out that Mincer Pool had a copper valve bust, and we were losing some water. And we cut the system off as far as adding water back in, so we wouldn't be adding water and losing water. And you will, if you're over there, you see someone over there, you see someone post about it, we're circulating that water through that's still in our surge tank, in our system, because we don't want our pumps sitting there not being circulated. We don't want that water sitting there not being circulated. But it's a foot or two low, it looks
Yeah.
like, at least.
It's probably about 30,000 gallons short of where it should be right now.
So we're working on getting that fixed, and I think we'll have the issue fixed fairly soon. We, just like anybody else, are gonna have to truck water in from outside our CCNs. We're gonna have to pay to have water, or one of these opportunities when one of these fire hydrants are getting flushed, you know, we'll rent a vehicle, get something there, try to capture as much as possible, put it in our pool as well. And so everyone's going through it. But we wanted to make sure we carved out a moment that we would normally be talking about, maybe some happier things, that we're here to answer any questions that y'all might have. The best that we can. We're not the utility team, but at least how it's affecting recreational stuff, we definitely wanted to answer, because we know that y'all may get it at some point.
I have a question, David. Do you know any solutions or alternatives for a newly planted vegetable garden with no rain catching?
How big is the garden?
It's only 4 by 5. It's a baby, but
I would try to capture sink water. Personal opinion. Try to sink water that doesn't have a whole lot of soap in it, because it'll change the pH of the soils. But if you can capture the stuff you're using to rinse off, I mean, any kind of food scraps might actually benefit.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
kind of compost. But if you can capture some of the water that doesn't have a whole lot of soap and reuse that.
okay. That was a big question I was getting / question for myself.
Just take your showers in the
It said to save your shower water, try to catch it. I don't know.
If the breaks keep happening from the construction from laying the new pipe, are they getting close to finishing laying that new pipe, or are we potentially gonna see more breaks coming?
90, they said this morning,
Yeah, I feel like
90%.
I feel like the pipe process is like 90% complete. I thought that's what they said this morning. Now, if I had to articulate what that means, I would have to shrug my shoulders.
More breakage.
I feel like we're getting close. And I know the breakage stuff probably frustrates people. The first time this pipe was laid, there was no lake. We were just bringing it to the lake. So I don't know how many times it would have got nicked or broken while it was getting laid out or whatever. So I don't even know if this is common or uncommon, or we're just having a string of bad luck. But I think we'll all be relieved once we have 72 inches of pipe and we don't have to worry about anything else breaking out there.
Because it's like a pressure main, right? Not gravity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's some pumps that are pumping it up and getting it around. And,
At that point, it'll
Those are
be,
the technical terms.
yeah,
well, at that point, there'll be 2 pipes.
Yeah.
So if one does break, the other one will still be
we'll
running.
be fine. Yeah, at some capacity, yeah. There was a bypass at one point. I couldn't tell you much more about that, but at some point we were pumping from one side to the other.
We have learned a lot over the last couple weeks.
I don't know if we've learned a lot, but we've sat in a lot of meetings
We've
where
taken in a lot of information.
engineers have told us things, and they're really telling like 4 people on that call, but there's 30 of us going, yeah, that sounds. That's the thing I would say to do also, yeah. Any other questions?
Have you all heard any misinformation, like amongst residents in terms of
Oh,
what's
man.
going on?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how to curtail that?
I'm not, fortunately, I'm not, I have social media, I'm just terrible at it. I'm not on it ever. So I'm not seeing that. But yeah, we've heard a lot of different things in these meetings, because comms is in there and city management office is in there, engineering and legal, and there's a bunch of public works and other folks are in there. And they go around at some point and everyone gives a report. And so Parks is talking about the things we're doing on our side and everyone else is talking about it. And we definitely hear from comms some of the things being said, like the car washes or other things. And
But the city, and particularly the comms department with Public Works, is trying to be as informative as they can.
Yeah.
So we put a FAQ out when this first happened with the questions we thought people would ask.
They're updating it all
They've
the time.
updated it with, you know, if there's a one-off question that is a little off the wall, they may not add that to the FAQ, but when they see patterns,
Yeah.
they try to put as much information. That's what I was saying earlier, it's almost like reading a novel at this point, but the information is there. So if you have people that are curious, and then some folks online are not curious, they just want to talk.
Yeah.
But the city, the website for that is, and if you go to the website, there's like a banner to go straight to the landing page. It's not hard to find. Most of the questions have been answered, but there's still good ones that come up that they're still adding. So a couple weeks after the fact, they're trying to be as informative as they can be.
Citizens want their city to function the way they believe it's supposed to function, and anytime it doesn't, they're going to be upset about it, and they have every right to tell you about it, and everyone's expressing their right now on Facebook. I think Utility and Comms is doing a great job trying to deal with all the situations. We're just trying to be good partners with the water that we have, making sure we're sharing it with all the people that need it, and still doing everything we can to make sure post this event, like, there's a strong chance once we're whole again, we're going to have to overwater places at Wells Point and Finning to, like I said, that turf's been out there for a long time and it's resilient, especially Wells Point and Finning. In some ways, it's even though we did some improvements to Wells Point, I mean, that turf's been out there 20 years, but we're going to have to overwater at some point to get it ready for fall ball. You know, we know things like that are going to happen. But I think everyone in the city, hopefully the residents will know that everyone in the city is actively working to mitigate any issues that are happening and trying in good faith to solve the problems as we're getting them, you know.
If y'all thought it would be helpful, we could also send you, it's a double-sided sheet. The first side has a QR code where people can see if they're part of the Pflugerville CCN or if they are perhaps Manville or Southwest Water. And then the opposite side has a QR code to the FAQ. And so that way, if you were to get asked questions, you could say, here's how you check if you're part of the CCN, and here's the FAQ. So that's a good way to share the accurate information with someone rather than trying to come up with an answer on the
It's what we've given all of our boots on the ground staff. So whether they're out in the field or here at the rec center and someone asks, they quickly can hit this QR code and find out more information.
Are there any like big events you had to cancel and move out because of all this?
Yeah, so the Monarch Sanctuary Project this weekend was going to do a huge pollinator seed called the milkweed that they'd grown in our greenhouse. They were going to do a huge giveaway, and the Monarch Sanctuary Project is a project we've been working with for a long time, and it's something they're very pro pollinators, and so are we. And the optics of giving away a plant at the lake that you then have to irrigate was a tough one for us to overcome. And so they're moving to the Lakeline HEB in Cedar Park to do it instead, which is that's tough for us. We've been working on that event for months. And like I said, the open swim events, and we've had a couple of people that booked the lake because they thought there'd be water out there, and you know, we've had to try to move them to Green Red Barn or other places. And so we're definitely feeling that effect in some ways. And, you know, we'd already be standing up some of our Learn to Swim program probably around now or soon would have had the registration. Mm-hmm. That was originally the plan, and we don't really know when we can do that yet. So we've pulled that back. And so, yeah.
The ISD has some classes that do end-of-year swim parties that we've had to let them know, hey, the pool will not be open for swim during that time. So
yeah, we're definitely going to see some of that. But I think it's a resilient community, and I think ultimately, you know, in a couple years we'll look back with this pipe in a capacity. Honestly, and I don't have any utility experience, but I've worked in other cities, and the Midwest and the East Coast, they don't have water issues. There's so much water in their water table, and some of their natural streams are okay. Texas, this is something that a lot of cities in Texas are worried about as far as water, especially with the growth of the city. And how the state manages it and who has access to it and where it falls and who captures that. And there's a lot of different rules and regulations for it. I think Pflugerville is actually going to be in an incredible spot in the next couple of years when you look up and the infrastructure that y'all have approved through your representation, your elected officials, and what they've approved. And I don't think there's many cities that I know of that are going to have 72 inches of water coming in from a water source that isn't regulated in some way that they'll be able to grow with. And I think there are towns all across even the greater Austin metro area that are already worried about what their water sources look like in the next couple of years. And this is unfortunate and frustrating, and I think residents have the right to own their reactions, and we have the right to hear about it. And I think we're trying our best, but I do think we're going to look up 5, 6, maybe it's 10 years, and we're going to see that we aren't worried about our water like a lot of these cities are going to be worried about their water. And so, bringing this 42-inch extra pipeline coming in and some of the construction and it affecting what we were currently doing is wildly frustrating, I get, for citizens. But I think when we're at the other side of this project, when we're looking back, I think the city's going to be very happy that we put up with this and did what we had to do to have 72 inches of water coming to us for a long period of time. That's going to cover us all the way through build out. Could be the envy of a lot of cities at some point in the future. Not right now. Not a lot of cities envious. Maybe Corpus, but other than that, not a lot of cities are envious right now. Okay. Well, and it was as short as sweet as I could make it. So,
To item 4B, discussion regarding Deutschen Pfest 2026 update.
I'm back again. Congratulations once again. You are all the Deutschen Pfest committee. So, wanted to start our first Deutschen Pfest discussion. So, quick thing about Deutschen Pfest. So, in 2019, the city, previously that event had been run by a citizen committee. And in 2019, that transitioned to a city staff running it. With a subcommittee of citizens who were helping plan the event. That has since transitioned into the Parks Commission. The whole purpose behind Deutschen Pfest has really kind of fluctuated for a lot of that time. About 2 years ago, we really wanted to take a look and see, like, hey, what is the purpose of this event? Is it truly a German festival? Is it a country music festival? Is it a food festival? Turns out it was actually all of those things. So what we've really embraced with Deutschen Pfest is it's a Texas-German festival. What does that mean? It can mean a lot of different things. A lot of cultures kind of mix into the Texan-German culture. As shown by last year's music performer on Saturday night was a Tejano cover band who covered modern-day pop music in a Tejano style. And you may be like, well, how is that German? They share the accordion. They share a lot of the same instrumentation and styling of music. And so it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Last year's Deutschen Pfest was a really great event. We've had now 2 years. This was the third year of building on that branding, the Guten Tag Y'all branding. And really marketing it as a Texas-German festival. The year before this, we also were competing against UT at playing Georgia at home. So F1 is during this time. There's a lot going on, but we are able to hold our own, and I think last year really showed that. We were up 25% on ticket sales. We were up 43% on visitors. That means people who dressed in German or Texas attire who got in for free, kids who got in for free. That's the total visits versus the number of tickets sold. We sold out of the fun run. We had 174 fun runners. And then we had 62 total vendors, which was an 80% increase. So, oh, sorry, you're all good. I'm gonna hop over and steal a spot. So some of the feedback that we got, we send out surveys after the event's over. We do an after action report. 84% of the attendees were satisfied with the event. 87% enjoyed the entertainment. 84% said they were satisfied with Wunderpark. So that's what we had previously called our kids zone. We heard a lot of feedback that teens didn't feel welcome in that area. They felt like it was a kids zone. So when you call something a kids zone, teens will not show up to it, period. So we've changed the marketing for that to Wunderpark. We've added some more teen, don't tell them or they won't show up, but we've added some more teen programming in that area. And then the beer garden and the main stage were two of the top 5 favorite zones. So some of the takeaways, like I said, attendees loved that Wunderpark. Shuttle buses were a high point. We use actual charter buses, not just like school buses. And so having AC and a place to put your stroller and all that is really, really helpful for this event. We got good feedback this last year on the German-Texas combo. We had some very German-style food. We also had some very Texas-style food. We tried to theme our music and entertainment along those lines as well. And like I said, Easy Band is that Tejano cover band. They were a huge hit. They have a huge social media following. And so we were able to tap into that. They actually still post videos to their page of them at Deutschen Pfest. So the turnout and the crowd was so good for them that they're using it in their own marketing. It was really funny. At one point there was a person wearing lederhosen and a cowboy hat who ran up to the front while they were playing, I think, a 50 Cent song. And so it was like the culmination of all the best things on planet Earth. Seating and shade were concerns, and so we're kind of taking a look at that. Really what we're here to talk about tonight, though, the 50th anniversary of Deutschen Pfest is coming up this year. It will once again be in Pfluger Park, which was just won the
Lone Star.
Lone Star Legacy for being 50 years old. This Deutschen Pfest event will also be turning 50. So we're going to have some historic content. We're going to continue to curate Texas and German vendors. We're going to continue to improve the food zone and the beer garden. Live music, you saw the screen there. We do football games on the Saturday, the Wunderpark, and then the kids the 5K fun run. What we really need y'all's help on is the music part. So our goals for the music, for the entertainment at Deutschen Pfest, is we want something that supports the Texas-German heritage vision. So it doesn't have to specifically be Texan or German, but we want something that kind of lends itself to that fusion. So what we've found is these kind of bands that play music across a lot of different genres are the ones that are the most popular. If you just do German music for kind of those Friday night and Saturday nights, the crowd is not super into that. We've tried country, and just solely country didn't seem to hit the mark either. So it does feel like more of the variety type bands are who tend to perform the best on those nights. We're looking for someone to really anchor with a strong Saturday night draw. We want bands that feel uniquely Pflugerville. We don't really want to just like Control-C, Control-V from other cities. We want to try and find unique artists if we can. And then we want something, like I said, that has broad appeal across all ages. So doesn't mean you can only give suggestions here, but a question that we wanted to throw out, we call it wondering a lot here in this department, is what genres and bands do you feel like best fit the Deutschen Pfest goals? And so if you have some that you're thinking of right now, feel free to say them. But if not, please continue to think about them. We would love to hear your feedback. The reason that you are the committee is so that we get that citizen input. And so if that means you go and talk to your 5 best Pflugerville friends and figure out what kind of music they want to see and then report back, that's totally fine. But we wanted to open the floor if anyone had any thoughts
about any artists or bands or genres that we should look at.
I'll do it. I'll perform.
Nice. Nice. Even better.
Me into it. I think pop is like a good fit, like actual popular music.
Yeah.
Pop music would be a good fit because that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just multiple genres,
Yeah.
but just like the top 40 hits at the same time. But I don't have a band aside from Suede at the top of my head, but I know Suede isn't an option currently.
Suede, we've had Suede. I remember, that was 2 years ago. We had Suede for the Friday night performance, and there was a person who had broken their leg and was on a scooter at the front of the stage, like pumping their crutch in the air. So Suede has always been a good hit for us.
But somebody in there.
Yeah, their
area,
genre.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a good fit.
So to Lisa's point, I wonder if it's less about the genres and more the fact that they're playing tunes that people know, even if it's like different variations.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe the angle would be finding like really solid cover bands that play songs people know.
Yeah, that was what was fun about Easy Band, was I think they played a Radiohead song
Yeah.
and then a Kendrick Lamar song right after it.
Right.
But it was Tejano.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Everyone knew, there was something for everybody,
Exactly.
but in there with their spin.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll let it sit and stew. If you do have people that you find on social media or that you talk to who have good ideas, send them over. We would love to hear the feedback from y'all on that. So,
Before we go to discuss and consider, Dave's wife called in a proof of life check. He's got like 15 boys in the house or something. If y'all don't mind, we'll go to the number 6. And then once tree care advisory is done, we'll double back to capital. Y'all cool with that?
Or we just did it, capital improvements.
Yeah, we just did it. All right, Dave, you want to drive or?
I can drive because I talk too much. So, mine are actually pretty quick. But while I was sitting there, I thought about something I forgot to put on the slide. So, all right.
Right there, you didn't even mention that. Cover girl.
Was that you at the first mulching?
Right there.
What? I didn't realize that was you this
That's
whole time.
Parks Commission, right?
That was the very first volunteer event that I hosted.
Big Shady.
So, if y'all don't know, we have the, actually this is a good slide. This is something I forgot about that we don't need to pull up before. Y'all know we have a really big pecan tree in Pflugerville. Formerly, Big Shady was the biggest pecan tree in Travis County. Formerly. Unfortunately, it's bittersweet news. We are now the biggest pecan tree in the 5-county metro area.
Dang right.
Bastrop had one that was beating us. Now there's a skate park there. So that's why it's a little bittersweet. But yeah, we also they also kind of cleaned up the big tree registry. I think we were 17th, now we're 13th in the whole state.
Look at that.
So anyway, and yeah.
We're on a rocket ship to 12th.
What's first on that list?
It's out in West. There's a lot out in West Texas. No, actually, I don't want to say anything on record because I can't. There is a lot of state champions and a lot of actually national champions in West Texas. To be fair, there's a lot of species that only grow in West Texas. So of course they're gonna have a lot of national champions. But all right, so good news. We are Tree City USA for the 19th year in a row. And we just got awarded the Growth Award for the 3rd year in a row. How we met the Growth Award, there's this whole list of things you can do from the Arbor Day Foundation that have different points. And if you do enough of those things and those points add up to 10, you get the Growth Award. What we did, something we always do, not just this year, but we enforce tree protection standards. So that counted for some points. Partnering with organizations for different forestry projects. Again, not something unique to this year, but something we use to get points. The Pflugerville Parks Foundation, Pflugerville Youth Advisory Committee, or YAC. The library hosts a teen service night. They don't call themselves anything, but I put that in there. It's still counted. And then the Cross Life Church Youth Group came out and did a bunch of plantings for us. Honorable mentions is the Citizen Foresters. It's not an organization, so I didn't put it in there. I guess I could have done the same thing as the library teen service night. But then youth education, we do host a Nature Fest annually, where we bring in third graders from different Pflugerville ISD schools for a day, and they do different stations, and all of them are certified education events for the state of Texas. And then didn't count towards it because it's not for the ISD. We also do an annual Little Forester story time at the library every year. And then I didn't have anything to do with this, but it still counted for these points, but I thought it was cool. Pflugerville now has an outdoor classroom at 1849 off in the woods. It's a pretty cool little spot. And so that got us some points too. So
You're welcome.
I think Ashton was probably the big push on that. If y'all haven't met Ashton, she works underneath Jonathan. She's probably one of the most dedicated rec programs people you'll ever meet. So
Agreed.
yeah, she even got an award a couple years ago, I think, right?
Yeah, well, she just got her CPRP, which is her certification, so.
All right, so Tree City USA. So here's some of the things, the metrics that they look at is how many trees you planted, how many volunteer hours you used, how much money you spent, and the existence of a tree board, things like that. So last year, I start the count the day after Arbor Day. So that's kind of how it goes. Because when I was doing this reporting over, it's hard to say, hey, we started the count on January 1st, so we just do it the day after Arbor Day, from Arbor Day to Arbor Day. So last year, we planted over 750 trees at different locations around town. The Windermere Replanting Project, which we don't do anymore, but that was planting trees in people's yards for them in 3 different neighborhoods around town. Windermere Park, we did Arbor Day. We did a lot of planting at the lake this last year, mostly using volunteers. Rosher Drive Trail, I don't think we actually got an official name for that, but there's a trail segment that doesn't connect to anything yet. It was previously agricultural land, so we did a bunch of tree sapling planting out there. So that when it is connected, hopefully we'll have a developing forest coming in. Tree board, one of the best things that they do, one of the big projects they do is coordinating an ISD planting. So we got several, I think it was 13 campuses this year? None of the tree board's here right now. Oh, Elise, are you still on the tree board?
I don't know. I only got one email.
That's partially my fault. I'm not a very good communicator.
Partially.
It's like we talk a lot during the ISD planting, and then I might send 1 or 2 emails the rest of the year. And then various roadway projects, and then more memorial trees, and then there's a bunch of little one-offs throughout town that happen. Distributed over 65 trees. It's hard to keep account of that because we get a lot of stuff donated to us. We get leftovers from planting projects, and then I just kind of show up to Earth Day and say, hey, who wants a tree? Sand Tree Claus, of course, does this annual delivery. For those that don't know, it's Santa Claus's cousin who hated the cold and moved to Texas. And then we
reindeer goats.
Yeah, he uses goats. Yeah, he uses goats to deliver trees. And then this isn't all tree planting events or forestry events. I don't know how to go back now, but there we go. But that does include any kind of mulching stuff that our volunteer coordinator handles. But if it's tree related, we counted those hours also. Then between the money we spent and whatever the Arbor Days value per hour on volunteer hours, that worked out to be $5.66 per capita that we've spent to build our urban forest. So, and the minimum is $2, so we more than doubled that.
Does that mean you're counting volunteers hours as like, what if it was labor hours kind of thing, or?
I don't know how they come up with the number. I just kind of put it in the form and it says, and then it gives me the total, and I was like, that's
Yeah,
way bigger than what
it
we
estimates if city staff had to do it.
Yeah. Do we keep stats on like how many of these trees are making it to like year 2, 3, whatever, if we're doing better than average, or?
It depends on the spot. So, like sapling plantings, we have one coming up on April 18th. I'm gonna be tracking some. We're gonna randomly select 50 of those to track. But the ones that we did this last year, we didn't track those at all. So,
Do you think we're kind of doing better than average in terms of keeping them going?
I think so. Not to brag, but I tried to make sure that we have a watering plan before we put anything in the ground. That might have been disturbed recently, but so we either it's in a spot where there's a host connection and it's a species that we know we're not gonna have to water forever, or we have irrigation installed prior to planting. So there's definitely a way to water trees before we plant them, which I think a lot of time gets lost in these big planting events. Everyone gets excited about it. The Windermere replanting project, for example, even though that was people's properties, they all came with timers, and we ran bubblers out, and they would be that way, just to make it as easy as humanly possible for them to establish. And actually, this summer I plan on emailing everybody that participated in that and kind of giving them see if they can do a self-assessment to see how much it made them. And then the parks, anything that we plant in parks, I try to keep a pretty close eye on it. So. And then as far as, once these leave our possession and go to people's houses, there is no, we don't.
Right.
So.
How many different species do you plant typically?
Oh, it's gonna be, a bunch. I know at the lake we've planted cottonwoods, 2 different types of sycamores, sprawled cypresses, 3 different kinds of oaks, eaves necklaces, red buds. Try to keep a very good variety of
See
species.
what you did?
So,
He just made up that.
Yeah.
Just saying words.
Yep. Cottonwoods, that's not a real
eaves
tree.
necklaces are excellent trees. They look a lot like Texas mountain laurels. They're very closely
Also
related.
made up.
He's doubled down, he's doubling down.
Does Pflugerville have what's like the most common tree and like what's like the most native tree, I guess, in Pflugerville's ecosystem?
Probably hackberry or sugarberry, followed by probably cedar elm, if I had to guess. So we actually do have that data available. I'll remember to send that to you. That's what pops up naturally, not necessarily what's planted. So I think Junior would kill me if I planted hackberries.
Very true.
All right, so Arbor Day, it has been a long time since I've been here, so just an update on Arbor Day, even though it was back in November. Those of y'all that weren't able to make it and that weren't part of the commission before, it happened completely on accident. We just happened to have Arbor Day and a mural painting the same day, so we combined those events, and I think it was extremely successful, personally. We had about 50 people show up for the planting, and 100 plus, I think, for the total event. So, I think that's the best Arbor Day that we've had in Pflugerville since I've been here. So.
My 4-year-old left with more stuff than he got for Christmas.
Yeah, our public works people and then the David Tree Expert Company were giving out swag bags, and Public Works was like, "Oh, this is what we had left over from Deutschen Pfest." They ran out in like an hour and a half. Davey was the same thing. Oh, we had an event, so we already had these made. They ran out, so it was a good time. I still have plenty of wildflower seed to give people. But yeah, definitely a significant increase. I think if these trends continue, we keep building like this, this will be bigger than Deutschen Pfest.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
People
go.
will say
We'll have its
Deutschen
own
what?
committee.
Yeah. No, but I think we could, I had kind of a goal to get about 0.5% of the population at one of these events. and I think that's very attainable. And I gave myself a goal of doing it in about 5 years. Might not quite make 5 years, but we'll definitely do it before I retire. So.
Does that mean Art Day is going to happen again this year? Or
I want to keep that same theme going. I talked to Erin. She was actually the one who did the mural painting. We'll see. We're going to talk offline and see if she wants to get, even if she doesn't get involved in even though I now think that the goats would be a great opportunity for this, but I think it would be, we'd still kind of keep that same theme. And then I'll just bug her with one-off questions here and there until she finally agrees to partner up again.
I also think that's a conservative estimate. I think there was well more than 100 people when I was.
So placer data, I found out, which is what we use to track participation in these types of events, only starts counting after 700. So it was less than 700. It was definite, so it might have been 650. You don't know that.
I don't know if I count that, but it was more than 100.
So, yeah, that's all we know. That's why I put the plus on there. So, more than 100, less than 700.
Between 100 and 100,000.
Yeah. So, and in 2020 and 24, we think there was about 30 people all told participating. So it was definitely a big jump. So. You beat me to this slide. Never like to keep the same up. What we want to do, more condensed. So at Arbor Day, there was about a half-mile walk from the different hubs. You know, there was the tree planting and kind of tree-focused stuff, and then there was the art stuff about a half a mile away from each other. I think if they were a lot closer, definitely be a lot more fun for people. And because there's definitely people that stayed on my end, or people that started at Aaron's end and didn't go back and forth. And they didn't get the full experience. So better tracking of participation. I was really hoping that I'd get that placer data afterwards, and then I found out that the limitations. So, and then 20th anniversary. So I know Deutschen Pfest is 50 years old. This will be the 20th Arbor Day celebration officially in Pflugerville coming up. So we'd really like to lean into that. So, and then this is just a humble plug. You know, I know it's hard to tell. I look exactly the same age in both those pictures. But that's my second oldest, and these pictures were taken 11 years apart. So
He didn't look happy to be in either of them.
no, he wasn't. So, and then upcoming, this is what I forgot about. I didn't put in the April 18th sapling planting, but that's coming up April 18th. And then tree walks are coming back. So our first one's going to be April 25th. So, and that's just a very unstructured, very unpaid. We pace it based on kind of how involved everybody is. My first one I kind of mapped out for two miles, and we did the whole thing, but it took a long time. I thought it was going to be the little kids that slowed us down. It was actually a hairy guy who kept wanting to talk about trees. So, and then I'm kind of glad this isn't the last slide in the presentation because we were left on a bad note. Also coming up, the emerald ash borer is an invasive species that's wiping out ash populations everywhere it goes. It's 2 counties away from us now. It's moving south, so we are probably one of the first cities hit when it gets to Travis County. That's going to happen in the next several years. Next few years is when it's probably going to be here, which means we're going to start seeing a huge decline in our ash population about 10 years after that. Good news is we have plenty of time to plan for it, but we're going to try to get some information out to the public starting this summer, and then hopefully by the end of the year have an action plan and get ahead of the problem. So if you ever research emerald ash borer, where it kind of first hit up north in our country, and kind of see the headaches that it caused. Hopefully we can avoid that here. So,
is there anything you can do about it, or you just kind of have to plan to lose a bunch of trees?
Unfortunately for public lands, and of course, don't want to give away too much for the action plan. We don't have a whole lot of ash trees that have been planted in areas that people use. We do have a few street trees that are ash trees. We do have a few parks that have some ash trees planted. We don't have enough in good enough condition probably to justify treating them. There is a treatment for EAB. It's a preventative treatment, and it needs to be done every 2 to 3 years. So part of that is we are going to kind of assess those trees that are in the right of ways, those trees that are in the parks, and see if any of them are worth the investment and the time. Because once the treatment starts, that's for the life of the tree, forever and ever. I don't think we're going to have any of those. Where the biggest impact's going to be is in our riparian areas, kind of along our creeks. We have a very big ash population natively, and our entire ecosystems are based entirely around these trees that are kind of collapsing up north. So it's a pretty bad situation. One of the reasons why we're doing that sapling planting where we are, which is going to be Kelly Lane Park, by the way, I didn't plug that. It has nice open woodlands, about 90% ash coverage. So we're going to try to get 1,000 saplings in this year. You expect up to about 20% of them to survive, depending on how much rain we get. So in that, 15 years between now and when we have population collapse, hopefully there's already a new forest ready there to replenish it. So.
Yeah, what sucks? You said there's some little cute bugs.
They are. EAB is real pretty. I wish they weren't so pretty, because now I want to just smash them all the time. But they are pretty cool. And that's my last slide. So now you don't get to end on a bad note.
Well, I realize we put a lot of faith in you. First of all, that you're not making words up, and that you're enunciating ash correctly. I appreciate that. All right, thanks, Dave.
We'll see you. See you Saturday.
See ya.
Okay, last, do y'all need like a 5-minute break or anything? CIP, y'all saw it last time. This will be a discuss and consider tonight. You're going to be making a recommendation to planning and zoning for our 5-year CIP, which will be part of the budget process. So I didn't know if y'all wanted 5 minutes or y'all want to power through. It's totally up to y'all. It's the last item. Awesome.
Power through? Okay. Yeah, so to start, my apologies for getting y'all this today via email. I know we had requests to get it earlier. Park and Rec Commission's the first sort of bite at this apple, and so we've been making edits to this, and you'll see some of them as we go through. We were making edits up until yesterday afternoon, so we had to get that finalized before we could comfortably send it out. So with that being said, this is the time to ask questions. I won't necessarily hit every detail of the projects. I think it's going to be mostly Q&A here. So if there was something we didn't talk about. And then a second piece to this is some of these projects are going to be on a 2026 bond election. And we presented some of our bond projects to the Bond Advisory Committee. And there was some concern that we didn't really have enough time to go into sort of the why on some of these projects. So if you have any questions about that, just know, obviously, we use our expertise to guide projects, but these projects come from somewhere, right? Whether it's from the master plan, whether it's from a site-specific plan, public engagement at various forums. But there's a reason that these are all here. There's a reason that they're all prioritized in the way that they are. And so if there's any questions about that too, we can cover it. So you can see and we've got these printed out for you because it gets really small here. We've got a lot of projects, and this goes all the way. This actually kind of goes out to 2036. You can see some of the projects will start design in 2031, depending on funding. Those are future funded projects. These are not going to be on the bond. So you see at the bottom there, Lake Pflugerville Phase 3, Old Town Park, and a multi-sport athletic complex that we discussed are future projects. But, so we go all the way out, really 10 years with this CIP. But what we're looking at specifically improving is 2027 through 2031. And so the reason you might see some of those projects that have funding into 2032 in the future is because there's some funding that is scheduled to start in 2031.
Destination play space, is that Bulls Park? Or-
Yes, yep. And we'll talk about that here shortly too. And I went in order in the presentation as you see it here. We'll cover this really quickly. There's not a slide about it. We'll have two items here that are Go Bond program management. So we have, and CIP and Public Works does this as well. We're in Parks, we're a one-man show in terms of our CIP projects. We've got a park project manager and a construction inspector. And so we will hire engineering consultants to help manage the bond program. So that's budgeting, that's making sure that we're looking at the right things. They do construction inspection to help augment staff time.
Being an owner rep for us, being on site.
Yep, being on site, being part of our interviews. We just interviewed for Destination Play, technically phase 1, for the design teams yesterday, 2 days ago. And our GEC, our general engineering consultant, is in those interviews with us. So they're essentially another staff member. And so you'll see that on there. So jumping to annual and trail improvements, this did not change from the last time that we talked about it. Again, talking about being guided by a plan, this is guided by the Mobility Master Plan. That's how it's prioritized. This addresses our trail connectivity to include new trails and filling trail gaps that were identified by that plan, which is the Mobility Master Plan is our transportation plan, but it also includes our trails master plan within it. And so you'll see some pretty precise numbers all the way through 2031 until you get to 2030 and 2031. We're working with the GEC right now to actually, we've created a 5-year plan, so we actually have the trail segments identified through that 5 years that we're going to work on, and those are estimated costs. And we try to include inflation in those too, so that we're not getting to 2030 and we don't have the funding for a specific project. So if it costs a certain amount in 2026, they're adding what they project for inflation in those future years.
What's the rough escalation rate per year these days?
I don't know, because it depends on what you're doing, since this is basically concrete for the most part, and then there's some bridges. I think they looked at somewhere.
He said GEC, general engineering contractor, that we give them what we're doing and they output a number. for
And
us.
they're constantly monitoring it, right? So at some point, it might be 6 or 7%. I think that was pre-2021, pre-2020, that was what construction cost estimates were for escalation. And over the last 3 or 4 years, in some of the years, I think they've seen 30% increases year over year for some of these construction costs. So they're taking an average basically of the last 5 years. They're not trying to say the highest number, but we also don't want to say the lowest number.
Yeah.
Any questions on trail improvements? Obviously, this is important to us as the trail capital of Texas. And so annual trail improvements, this is a project that will be on the bond, the 2026 bond. Or a set of projects, I should say. The Gillen Creek Trail Master Plan, we actually just selected a firm to move forward on this. We'll be taking that to council in April. This is a master plan, again, to focus specifically on sites along the Gillen Creek Trail. So basically Grand Avenue all the way to where our destination play will be, including all those parks there. This number has not changed. We do have, again, this is already funded. We've got the funding in 2026 and then into 2027. Questions? Lake Pflugerville Phase 2, we expect design to begin in April. We've selected our design team for this. We've been negotiating for the last probably month and a half or so on scope and making sure that everything is in their design scope. And we just finalized that today, actually, and so we're getting that on the council agenda for April. We hope to start soon after that. This is a 2020 bond project, so this is already has the funding. And as a reminder, this is the northern portion of the lake, the wetlands boardwalk, which it would be nice if we could install that right now.
Yeah.
And then the Silent Harbor Loop trailhead. along Silent Harbor Loop. And so you'll see the funding for this goes all the way to 2029. That's based on the scope and the project schedule that we've received from the design team. Questions before we move?
So it's expected to be completed in 29 then?
Yeah, the first part of the fiscal year. So this is based on fiscal year. So essentially that would be Q1 of calendar year 2028. I'm sorry, Q4 of calendar year 2028. And we have, obviously this is early. We have confidence that can be delivered ahead of schedule, our design team.
Pflugerville's fiscal year start October 1.
Destination play space. So because of timing, this is partly a 2020 bond project. We have $5 million in funding from the 2020 bond. But for purposes of the CIP, it makes sense to make these one project. So again, this is Destination Park. This is located at Bowles, right next door to us right now. And looking at multi-generational, all abilities, playscapes with just gathering spaces, placemaking. That'll also be what we have seen across the country in parks like this, which we showed y'all last time, is downtown Cary Park in North Carolina. An economic driver for the area around it. Businesses and folks are wanting to move around it. Businesses want to be there. And so obviously this depends on passage of the bond in later this year, November. If that passes, then we will move this into one project so that we can just get started with design and sort of move forward. So there's $5 million funded, 12.8 will be on the 2026 bond to get this in line with what this type of project costs. Downtown Cary Park is about a $60 million project, so we're using inspiration from that. We're not using scope and size for what we're doing, but similar projects run in that range.
Keep using the pictures from Cary Park with the birds playscapes, and Cedar Park's already used the bird playscapes.
Yeah,
so
we
gotta
won't
make
use the
sure.
birds.
Yeah, we gotta have a different animal now.
No, big old goat. And those are custom. I think they got these from a company called Monstrum.
Yeah, Cedar Park, Houston.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It looks
So-
exactly the same as the one in Cedar Park.
Monstrum's only had 2 projects, one in San Antonio and now one in Cedar Park.
In Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can make a big Shane if we wanted to.
That's awesome. The Lorax.
Sorry, I just glossed over that one. Do we have questions about that? Okay, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan update. So in the previous iteration that you saw last month, we had this cost a little bit higher because, to be honest with you, we've met a lot of the goals in our 2023 master plan already, and we're in 2026. A 5-year update is required for grants and accreditation, which our department's going to seek in the next couple years. And so this is a review of our 2023 plan to ensure community priorities remain the same. We expect it to be pretty robust, again, because we've delivered on a lot of those deliverables, and then we want to make sure that our community engagement, things change in 5 years, especially in fast-growing communities, and so we want to make sure we're revisiting our community engagement in the ways that we did previously. But we've gotten some. After having some conversations with some firms just about basic pricing, we've learned that even a robust update is not quite the scope of master plan itself. So
Yeah, we dialed that in a little bit.
we dialed that. Yep. So you'll see that starts next year. We plan on starting that halfway through the year. It's about probably a 12-month process. I think the master plan was probably 18 months.
Yeah.
So the update's about a 12-month process. So we'll start that halfway through FY27 and finish about halfway through 28.
There's some requirements from Texas Parks and Wildlife and others to update every 10, or redo every 10, update every 5, things like that for grants and other stuff. So this just keeps us in compliance and on a standard operating procedure of what the best cities in the country do.
Yep. If we applied for a Texas Park and Wildlife local park grant or a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, we would have to have this.
Even on.
And it's required for accreditation of our department.
That's because they called again.
Yeah, dang it.
1849 Park Phase 3 is another project that will be on the bond. This is, again, guided by a 10-year-old plan at this point, the 1849 Park Master Plan. And so we're going to be making some updates. I mean, if you can see, the bottom portion of that is what's currently 1849, and it does not look like that at all. So we imagine that this northern portion, as we get into it, is also going to be quite a bit different than what the 2016 master plan had in it. To include, there was a 2,000 seat amphitheater and festival grounds there. The way that that's developing out there, we don't think that's a good use at this point of that space. And so what we've discussed and the design process will have community engagement. We will make sure that it's not our opinion, it's the community's will that gets this thing designed and across the finish line. But we are going to add, this total's not right actually. So if you'll notice in your packet, the total for this went up. 12 million was never the cost. It's 25 million. I believe it was 18 the last time we presented this, but here, so they put baseball fields here in the master plan. We have the new baseball fields here. We've gotten concepts and an opinion of cost to put 3 more fields here, because this was originally, phase 2 of 1849 was supposed to be 6 baseball fields. And by the time we got to construction and and when you go out there, and we talked about doing a tour of phase 2, you'll see the grade changes that they had to work with to build those 3 fields. They're tiered, so no field is at the same level, which is a great viewing experience, really expensive for construction. And so we ended up getting 3 of the 6. And so what we've added, the reason it's gone from 18 to 25 is we're going to, if this is approved by the bond, in the bond election, we're going to add a larger field, one larger baseball field with a 300-foot fence, another field that's about the same size as the 3 that we just constructed, and then a Miracle League field, which is that synthetic port and play. I think it's port and place for surfacing, I guess, so that you can play t-ball games on it, you can play young kids on it, but it's also for adaptive programming. So play baseball or softball with kids in a wheelchair or other mobility issues. So that cost went up for that. Again, we anticipate this area up here, instead of being festival grounds, we imagine this being more state park-like amenities. So you'll have nature trails, single track nature trails, maybe you have some mountain biking here, and then outdoor education, things like that. And then this is pickleball and tennis courts up here. But again, working off a 10-year-old master plan, once we get into design on this, we will re-engage the community, see what they want out of this space, and make sure that that's still accurate.
Talking about state park type amenities, has it ever been part of the master plan to do any kind of like campsites or RV sites or something like that?
It wasn't, and it certainly can be. I mean, I think if we've said state park-like amenities several times, I would guess that's a question that will come up in community engagement. That's where we can sort of re-envision that space. I mean, a 2,000-seat amphitheater and festival grounds, that's a big space.
Yeah.
And so if we take that away, which again, we don't think is a good use of that space at this point, that leaves us a lot of room to do other things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it probably doesn't serve our citizens as much, but maybe as a destination.
Could be a tourism thing, yeah.
Well, you've already got people doing tournaments and things.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
So it could be a component of that, but we'd need some overnight staff too. It would increase operations out there, because you'd obviously want people out there dealing with any issues that were happening. But
And you'll see in this packet, if you can read it, you'll be able to read it in your email. But we project operational costs. Those are really loose projections. So it's our best estimates on what we think those things would cost if we already have that type of amenity. If not, we utilize NRPA data or other things to try to project that as best we can. But once we get in design, that's when you can really nail that down. So if, through public engagement, for example, they say the community says they would like RV sites or campsites, what we will have the design team do is look into operational costs with that. And so we can really nail some of that stuff down. Ignore that total. Look in your packet. Questions about phase 3? Reunion Park is also on the 2026 bond. This was identified in the comprehensive plan and a future land use map to create the park space and the historic colored edition. I used a photo, I think this was in Bend, Oregon, but essentially to say that this is going to be a space that we hope people are gathering in, right? It might be the size of a neighborhood park. There's not a lot of folks that live in the HCA anymore, so really this is a celebration of its history, and paying homage to the reunions, community gatherings that have happened there, and then allowing that use of this space to happen in the future because it's no longer occurring there. There's no space for it. And so the hope for this project, once we get into design, would be ample room for community gatherings, family reunions, that sort of thing, and then playscapes and everything that pays homage, everything in design that pays homage to that space.
Are there like trail connections that'll be able to get in there?
Yeah, we'll have to figure some of that out. The Trails Master Plan, I believe, had some sidewalks and some connectivity, or the Mobility Master Plan rather, to this area.
We're seeing more residential come to that area, which will require some of that as well.
Yeah.
Feels like that's not too far from Gillen Creek.
It's not,
Yeah.
yeah, and it goes right, yeah,
I
you're
think-
close to the, obviously you're close to the trail corridor. 'cause
I
you're
think
right
there was
up on it.
potentially a roadway coming in from Swenson Farms into this
Yeah.
area too at some point. That was part of the future, one of the future
Land
plans.
Yep.
So if that happens, obviously that's easy connectivity, but yeah. Most of the amenities in downtown, older parts of downtown don't have connections. We'll talk about Old Town Park, same thing. There's no connectivity to the rest of the system. And so that's going to be a big part of what we look at. And we have other funding sources for that. We get sidewalk funds from development. Typically, if there's areas where they just it's not feasible to put sidewalks, they have to pay into this escrow account. And so we have the opportunity to use those funds in other places. So potentially we could create that connectivity without even dipping into the budget for the project. Lake Pflugerville Phase 3, this is AI. I thought it looks awesome, so we should design it exactly how they said. This was identified in, again, an old master plan from 2014. This is not part of the bond, but is scheduled for future funding. This will be a nature center. This is on the old Bealey House property, so it's on the western portion of the lake. We've got a pretty good amount of property right along some of the wetlands over there. And so our thoughts are that this is a nature center mostly. We'll have community gardens. We'll also have indoor education, classroom space, event space, indoors and outdoors. Again, community gardens, the greenhouse that we're using that area for currently, and hoping to upgrade all of that, and obviously parking. So the thought in the future, and as we go into design, is that this would be a staffed, open nature center that folks could visit. So there's some operational costs that would come with that, but we think it would be a really incredible amenity. We don't have anything like this. We have Jonathan's teams doing great nature programming. Obviously, Dave's a one-man wrecking crew of nature and tree-related programming, and so this would offer a space to really expand our outdoor and nature education programs.
Is there any A&M AgriLife extension activity in Pflugerville?
I'm sure there is. Do we work with AgriLife?
We do,
Yeah.
them as well as USDA.
But I don't know
A
how
spot
often
like
we're
that would be a
facilitating
hub
with
for
our
it.
spaces.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
something like this would offer us the opportunity to partner with those.
Yeah, because I know in
Better.
Houston, my dad works with the AgriLife extension a lot, and there's at least one facility I know that has a pretty cool greenhouse that they get to use and kind of work with that.
And that's another thing as you get into funding, especially with the Pflugerville Park Foundation now, is there's public-private partnership opportunities, or even partnerships with other governmental agencies that might be able to, one, help with funding, and then there's a trade-off there, right? So they will help with funding, but they get to use the facility for certain uses. I think this would provide a pretty cool opportunity for that. We're working with the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center right now on the Rewild Pflugerville program that's going to kick off in the next several months. And so there might be partnerships with groups like that as well, so things like this. So
we're working with Texas Parks and Wildlife on a nature program. And right now it's being hosted out of the Windermere Clubhouse. This would obviously be a great facility for it as well. It's a fishing program, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense next to it.
Old Town Park, guided by a pretty new master plan, approved and adopted in 2025. This is the historic water tower and then Old Town Park, which not a lot of folks even know about. This was a reimagining of that space, creating a vibrant, passive space that sort of tells the story of water, was the water in our community, which ironic right now. And so this would include site rehabilitation, again, those pedestrian pathways, so making sure that this is connected to historic downtown through sidewalks or trails through alleys, things like that our city has easements on. This is not part of the 2026 bond. This is for future funding, as you'll see in the CIP. Any questions on that one?
I think there was spending here, like in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
What was that about?
That was the master plan. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, some of those you'll see early spending and then not much else happening for a while. That's typically master planning.
Gotcha.
Or even just simple concept designs. Multi-sport athletic complex. The cost of this went up a little bit since the last time you saw it. So again, this is guided by the athletic feasibility study. This is 4 baseball fields, 4 softball fields, and then 4 multi-use sports fields. What was not included the last time, which is why that cost went up, we have estimates for cost of land and then the cost of constructing those individual fields. That did not include cost of constructing the parking, the trails, the playgrounds that go around that. So we had to go get some other cost estimates. And so I think that was about $50 million the last time we presented this. With that, it's about $60 million. Important to note, that includes the money for land acquisition as well. And so you obviously have to get, 1849 is 330 acres total at this point. I don't know what the southern portion of that is, but we've got really, 6 fields?
Mm-hmm.
Soccer,
I think the
multi-sport
first 6.
fields?
I think the first 6 is 80. So then
Yeah, so then you've got the 3 additional baseball fields, so it's 100 acres,
Yeah.
120 acres.
something like that, probably close to half.
This is bigger than that, and so it's a lot of space that you have to purchase. And at this point in Pflugerville's growth, this is going to be east, right, where there's flat land available. And this is not going to be on the 2026 bond, but we will, as a department, we will push to get this on the next funding opportunity that we can, because that land is only going to get more expensive, and this project will only get more expensive. So we did, through that athletic feasibility study, again, they used some cost inflation data because they had where we should be 2030, 2035, and 2040. And so in those cost estimates, it used some inflation data, but you never know what could happen in the next 10 years. So,
Is there any ability through like either eminent domain or something else to kind of like designate areas that you'd be interested in doing something like this in, and then whether that's negotiating an option with the landowner or something like that?
I'm sure there is, even.
Yeah, I mean, I think through the feasibility study, once it gets approved by council, as we start to see developments come further east and they want us to be annexed, we could start to require that instead of the parkland dedication in some way. Like, no, we don't want fee and lieu. We want
this piece of
this
land.
contiguous land because it's going to connect to that. But we'll probably need 5 or 6 developments
Yeah, I mean,
to give us the type of land we would need in
I
total.
don't remember the acreage. Jonathan looked at that more than I did, but and that acreage only incorporated the fields themselves.
Yeah.
So
and it got us to still behind, but close to 60% of what we would need at that point.
yeah, that's important to note that this is not fully meeting the athletic needs of the community. This is just getting us further towards meeting those needs. We're pretty far off of that 2040 projection, and this is, even with this facility, we would still be about 60%.
Yeah, 50 to 60%.
Yeah, and there's some interesting things. You never know what can happen with development. There's an example, I think it's McAllen, we were talking about this the other day, that a huge development came in right outside of town, and part of what they worked on the city with was building a pretty large athletic facility. So, you know, we will keep this in the back of our mind at all times, and if something like that were to pop up, we'd be ready for that conversation. We know what we need, we know how much space it will take, we know what the costs are, at least estimated. So,
How did we acquire the 1849 land?
who purchased it?
We took money from the lake bond.
Yeah.
We did a feasibility study on Randig, which is a tract of land that the city owned.
Just
and
east of the lake.
and found that to be a tough spot because of how much floodplain it was. It'd be a tough spot. We have a lot of floodplain land, but you'd have to elevate some things, restrooms and things like that. And it was a tough sell. And then all of a sudden, so the city realized it needed ball fields, couldn't do it on the track they thought they would. They had bond money from the lake, and the original Pfluger family was selling the original Pfluger tract. And it was just one of those things that was too tough for that council to pass up at the time. So that 330 acres was the original Pfluger family's land, which is why we call it 1849 Park, because that's when they came to the area. Their cemetery is still right on the outskirts of that 330 acres, the family cemetery. And so we purchased it at that time and city started to do improvements to it in phases.
And so to avoid that situation, I don't have a slide for it, but there's a line item on here for land acquisition. So that is the last portion of the bond that we're proposing $7 million to go on the 2026 bond for land acquisition. One, that would be for purchasing the land for Reunion Park, when we'll work with landowners and negotiate some of that. But then also, going back to development, we receive funds, whether it's through fee and lieu or through the development fee from new development. If we have a considerable amount of funds in our escrow account, but we don't have the land to develop something, that gives us the opportunity, if a piece of land came available, we could go purchase it and then develop it in those areas. It's also used for trail gaps, so often there's between development. There might be a future development that would come through to close the trail gap, and the city doesn't have to put anything into that. There's also a lot of spaces where there's 100 feet that we're gonna have to purchase land for to connect two trails that don't meet. And so that land acquisition, we don't necessarily have that designated other than Reunion Park to utilize for a specific purpose. But it avoids that situation where if a piece of property came available, we now have the funding to purchase it instead of having to dip into another project. And so that's been our MO since 2020, is that when we do a bond, we're gonna have land acquisition dollars in there so that we're never pulling from another project to purchase land. Okay, we covered that really quickly. Any questions?
Like I said earlier, this is an action item, so you'll need a motion, a second, and a vote, and then it'll go to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning will have the same opportunity, and then they'll make a recommendation that it goes into the budget. I think there's a finance and budget committee still, or maybe not anymore.
I don't think so.
Okay. And ultimately, it folds into the overall operating budget that city council will see, and they have a couple of bites at the egg of that, bites of the apple at that at some point too as well. So it'll be looked at different phases: early summer, midsummer, and the 2027, which is what you're looking at, will ultimately be approved late summer, right before the budget's ratified and we start using it as operations in October of this year.
So I have a couple questions. So it seems in terms of, excuse me, future funding, it seems like there's about 150 million and change. How much of that is in the 2026 bond, or has that been approved, or how does it work?
So we have about 60 million in the 2026 bond for park projects, if I remember right. Maybe
60, 65, something
And
like
that's
that.
Yeah.
approved, that's.
No, so that will go, we have a bond advisory committee right now, they're working through that, we presented our stuff, transportation is gonna present their stuff on Monday. Then there's a process to get that onto the bond election, voters will have to approve that ultimately in November.
In the November election.
Gotcha. And then the rest will be for.
And the rest is for potentially future bond, maybe some of the smaller projects we look at funding with parkland escrow, grant funds, stuff like that. Some of those larger projects they're bond dependent,
Yeah.
essentially.
And that brings me to my next question. If we don't get the amounts that we're looking for, do we have a sense of the prioritization of the projects, or is that too early to consider prioritization what needs to be cut?
So a couple things could happen. You could put it on bond and the citizens can vote against it. If that happens, you can't actually move forward with any of these projects for, I think, 2 or 3 years or something like that, because citizens voted against it in some capacity.
Okay.
What's more likely to happen is it'll be all propped as one or potentially two. And so then they'll vote on that full prop. So let's say that prop's 6, let's say there's a prop for transportation, a prop for downtown, and a prop for parks. So there'll be a 3-prop bond. Parks would be 68 million or 65 million or whatever. And then once that happens, we have the full 68, 65 million or whatever the ultimate number is. But the city won't call on that money all at once.
Okay.
So then the city will start to say, okay, what do we have the capacity to do? Obviously, destination play would be one that we're already starting to work on, so that would probably be front loaded. But maybe the lake would be, or 1849 Phase 3 or whatever, would be loaded into the middle portion of it, because the city has to call on these bond funds as well as the transportation bond funds, and ultimately that goes into what you are paying in a property tax level. And so the city's not going to call on 68 and $100 million transportation, so almost 160, 200 million all at once, and you're paying on them tax-wise. So we're going to call on them as we can afford the debt and as we can afford to do those projects. So that is why right now we're working on a 2020 bond, but it's 2026 and we're still finalizing some stuff, because we had to do it at the capacity that we could manage it, and the city had to do it at the capacity they could take on that debt. So some of these will be front loaded, some of these will be loaded in the middle, some of these will see a later time frame on them. So some of these will get done in 2028. And I think Jeff and his team have done a good job of trying to parse out what would happen and what wouldn't. But some of these will be done much later in this 5 or 6 year window.
And I will say, compared to the 2020 bond, that was more than what we're taking to the voters this time.
Yep.
And so we are getting on to some of these projects, actually all of the bond projects, pretty quickly, and to some capacity. That may not be, they're not going to all go to construction at the same time.
Sure.
But we have funding for every one of those projects to some extent in 2027.
Gotcha.
And so we talked to our one-man show park project manager, made absolutely sure he was comfortable moving forward with those. And that's where the GEC, the bond program management we talked about, really helps, because without that, we're doing these one at a time, you know. And so they allow staff to get a lot more accomplished than they would on their own.
Then last question, is there room or an opportunity for more grant funding?
Absolutely. As projects get designed, and once we have a design that we can take to Texas Parks and Wildlife, a shelf-ready, what they call shelf-ready project, which is a project that's designed but it's not funded, or designed and partially funded, those are far more likely to get done than a conceptual design, or just us putting something in and saying, we'd really like to do this blank, but we don't have any money for it. So most of those granting, whether it's Texas Parks and Wildlife or even like a Lady B. Johnson or one of these more philanthropy-based groups want to see, one, some skin in the game, and two, that you've got a proof of concept. So as we get closer to design, and as we start to say, well, we've got a bond, we've got 10 million here, do you want to match it? And so then maybe it makes a 10 million, a 20 million, or maybe they match it up to a certain amount. So they say, we're willing to match anything up to $2 million. It takes our $10 million project, makes it a $12 million project, 10 of bonded and 2 more of this grant or donation of some capacity. So we'll see those opportunities, especially some of the really unique things we're doing. But I would say we got to get to a design before we feel like those things are really plausible.
Yeah, for the most part. And I will say too, I think you just mentioned like the philanthropic giving. That's going to be pretty important for us for some of these projects, particularly like Destination Play. We just want to start to build, honestly, advocates in the community. I don't know how much money we're going to get, you know, if it's a $17.8 million project that we're asking people to give, you know, and it's not people necessarily. You're asking companies or large donors to give. You know, it's not going to offset or add that much of a percentage to it. But that's going to be where our big asks are, I think, because the grants that are available to us now, there might be things that we're not really seeing, but most of the big grants are from the Land and Water Conservation Fund at the federal level. Those get given to the states to divvy out. The state grant maximum for our size city right now is $750,000. So that's not nothing. It's a lot of money. But they haven't updated that in probably a decade and a half. And so that doesn't go as far as it did a decade and a half ago. And they only have about, from the state, they only have about 45 to 50 million every 2 years to give out to the entire state. So we're talking about pretty big projects. I think on a couple of these, we're going to apply because $750,000 extra sounds great.
Jeff and Jonathan have had some experience winning those.
Yeah, I got
city.
one in my previous city, and that was, we were a smaller community, and that was huge for us. We had $750,000. It's a matching grant, so you have to put in $750, and so we got $1.5 million park built, and or they're doing it right now actually, and that was huge. That isn't as much of a slice of the pie for our projects as it was there. And so it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means it's not offsetting the funding required for some of these larger projects.
It helps us in the value engineering phase.
Yeah. Gotcha. No, that's absolutely true. Yeah,
Makes the
we may
playground
not
a little
lose.
bigger.
When
Right.
some of those costs, if costs go up 30% again year over year, right in the middle of design on one of these, that's the difference between getting all the amenities you thought and not. So that's why it's important. It's just not as big of a pot of money as you would think it is.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Ultimately, a motion and a second, like I said, and a vote so we can move this.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Now, before you get to that, is there any other discussion y'all would want here? Okay, run it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, say nay. Nobody?
Or you can't go back on it now because you voted. But if you have questions, since I sent it to you today.
One last thing.
Yeah, that's too late. If you have questions, just shoot me an email.
Alrighty. That's all the information that we had to go over today, so I'm adjourning the meeting at 9:14 p.m.
Yay, thank you.